Let's look at the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, scheduled for Wednesday, December 23rd. How does Vegas see this game shaking out? What's the odds they've set? Georgia Southern, 3-point favorite against Louisiana Tech, the home state team. And that gives it with a total of 53 and a half. So if we lay out a projected score there, we're looking at Georgia Southern 28-25 against Louisiana Tech. Sounds about right. Looks like a game that could be played in the mid to upper 20s. But let's look at the teams in this matchup before we get into the players. Georgia Southern, third in the Sun Belt East, finished at 7-5, played 12 games this year, ended this year with a 34-26 loss to Appalachian State. I actually thought that Georgia Southern, even though they lost 3 of their last 4 games, looked pretty good. I know they were banged up at quarterback with Shai Werts. Let's look at their losses in those last 4 games. At Army, 28-27. Georgia State, 30-24. And Appalachian State, 34-26. So they played Coastal Carolina to a 2-touchdown game halfway through the season. And then they lost at Louisiana earlier this year, 20-18, on a late rally by the Raging Cajuns in that matchup. So when you look at the 5 losses for Georgia Southern, every one of those games looked like they were played tight, except the game against Coastal Carolina, where it was a 2-score game. They've been able to keep things close all year long. On the Louisiana Tech side, 5-4, which was third in the CUSA West. When you look at their schedule, wins against Southern Miss, Houston Baptist, they got routed by BYU. They beat UTEP by 4. They got beat pretty good by Marshall. They lost at UTSA by a point. They did beat UAB, who's playing for the Conference USA Championship. So that was an impressive win for the Bulldogs there. And then they beat North Texas, and then they got throttled on the road at TCU as they went on and played a Big 12 team at the end of the year and got beat 52-10, got beat pretty good. The really what's important part of that game, and what we're going to get out of that matchup, is that they lost Luke Anthony for the year, who suffered a fractured leg in that matchup. So now we get into a matchup for Louisiana Tech, and I think this is really going to not help them. Is that now they've got to get Aaron Allen, who does have over 500 yards passing on the year and has played 4 touchdown passes, but now Anthony was pretty much their quarterback 1 for most of the season. Now they've got to get Aaron Allen ready against the Georgia Southern defense that at times has looked really good. So let's get into sort of looking at the stats for these teams offensively, defensively. Georgia Southern averaging over 26 points a game, Louisiana Tech third over 31. When you look at the rushing yards, right? And this is where the contrast of these teams really comes into play, contrasting style in this game. Georgia Southern averaging over 267 rushing yards per game, not even averaging 100 yards passing per game, 98.5 yards per game. When you look at Louisiana Tech, 103 rushing yards per game, not that impressive, but they've thrown for over 231 yards per game. Defensively, how does that match up against both teams? Well, when you look at Georgia Southern, better defense, they've only given up 21 points per game. Louisiana Tech's given up over 30 points a game, 32.1 to be exact. They're giving up Louisiana Tech over 165 rushing yards per game on the ground, over 250 yards passing in the game per game. Is that going to come into play, though? Because we're looking at a Georgia Southern team that's not going to put the ball in the air that much. And quite honestly, there's concerns on whether or not players like Shai Werts, Justin Tomlin, who was their number 2 quarterback, there's a chance that both of these guys won't even be ready for the matchup this week. So what happened is you've got Miller Mosley that came in and played their last game and looked good against Appalachian State. So I don't know if there's going to be a considerable drop-off, even though you're going to have a drop-off when you're down to your third-string quarterback. But if Georgia Southern can keep the ground game churning, I think they're going to be okay, and they'll be able to kind of they'll hang in there with Louisiana Tech. And I do think the defense will be able to keep them in the game as well. Now, on the Georgia Southern side, on the Georgia Southern defensive side of the ball, they're only giving up over a little more than 100 yards per game on the ground, 106.5. that really does it. That may not even come to play much against Louisiana Tech because they've been able to do their damage in the passing game. They haven't really had an effective and efficient running game all season long. So this is going to be a game where I think the Bulldogs may not even get 100 yards rushing on the game. And it's going to come down to the ability of Aaron Allen to put the ball in the air and really be efficient in the passing game for Louisiana Tech. But keep in mind, both of these teams have quarterbacks that are hurting, and there's a good chance that we may see Georgia Tech's third string quarterback in this matchup. But we just need to be, for Georgia Southern, they just need to be able to run the ball efficiently. So I think this is a bigger challenge for Louisiana Tech than Georgia Southern because now they're replacing a quarterback and the passing game comes into question. Whereas with Georgia Southern, the quarterback can be a little bit more of a manager in this run heavy system. And as long as the horses are up front are going to be okay, then I think the running game is going to be okay. Because keep in mind, not only did Georgia Southern not have Shy Wirtz against Florida against Appalachian State, and in that Florida Atlantic win, when they won 20-3, it was the defense and the running game that did the job. They don't have Wesley Kennedy, who was lost because of suspension. They don't have JD. I don't think JD King will be available for this game as well because of an injury. So you're looking at a Georgia Southern offense that pretty much, they put things together against Florida Atlantic, 20-3 win against a pretty decent Florida Atlantic defensive team without Wesley Kennedy, without Shy Wirtz, without JD King. They came within 8 points of Appalachian State in the regular season finale. I do think that this is going to be a Georgia Southern offense that's going to be okay. Let's look at the pieces, right? At the running back spot, you got Logan Wright, you've got Gerald Green. Will Matt LaRoche get in there? Will Jalen White get some work? That's going to be the big question. If Georgia Southern's going to really play this game to win, other than just getting guys in the game, I think you're going to see a lot of Logan Wright and a lot of Gerald Green in the backfield for Georgia Southern. Right now, when you look at projections, we have Wright projected as a top running back in this matchup with Gerald Green right behind him. The Georgia Southern receivers can be a little bit more of a hit or miss, a little bit more of a roulette wheel as well, because you never know what you're going to get. But we do know that Malik Murray does lead the team with receptions. He's got 20 receptions for 258 yards and a TD. You've got Caleb Hood in there that's also got 14 receptions for 159 yards and a touchdown. Will they work somebody in like Hood? Will they give Murray some work in the backfield as well? That's really going to be a big unknown and the wild card going into this matchup, with the depth depleted, obviously, at Georgia Southern in the backfield. Will they find a way to get other guys touches in addition to Logan Wright and Gerald Green in this game? And will that involve guys like Malik Murray or Caleb Hood? So I do think, even though there's some unknowns on the Georgia Southern side, we know the system. We know that we're going to get what we're going to get. And whether Wirtz is in there, whether Tomlin's been there or Mosley's been in there, the offense has at times been efficient because of the guys up front. And because of the defense keeping them in games, I think Georgia Southern is going to be in a better place right now than Louisiana Tech. We know that Justin Henderson opted out midway through the season. Israel Tucker has looked good for Louisiana Tech. He's as of late, he's rushed the ball 129 times this year for over 500 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns. I think Greg Gardner looks like he's gonna, he's pretty much taken over the number 2 role. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He's only carried the ball 32 times this year. He has found the end zone a couple of times, but I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Israel Tucker when Louisiana Tech does try to run the ball. And there's a good chance, based on the Georgia Southern defense, that he may be more of an effective receiver in this game than actual runner. So we're going to see how that plays out. But if he's going to do any damage, I think he may have to do so a little bit more as a receiver. And that might come into play in this matchup, because with Aaron Allen taking over for Luke Anthony at quarterback, we may see a little bit more of him hitting some underneath routes, check down routes, getting the ball to Israel Tucker out of the backfield, utilizing some players, in those intermediate routes, maybe getting the ball on some bubble screens or some quick hitters to Smoke Harris, maybe even utilizing Smoke Harris on some jet sweeps or whatnot. But I do think that Smoke Harris is going to be a key to the Louisiana Tech offense now. Obviously, Aaron Allen being the biggest key, because he needs to be able to carry that passing game. But it'll be interesting. I don't doubt Skip Holtz he's been a good coach. He's been a good bowl coach over the years. I think he'll have this team ready for this matchup. I think they'll be creative on offense. They certainly have the receivers between Harris, Griffin Hebert, CJ Powell, Isaiah Graham. There's no shortage of talent at Louisiana Tech at receiver. The problem is you just don't know who's going to be the guy to sort of break out. You look at Smoke Harris; he's got a rushing touchdown, he's got 4 receiving touchdowns. You've got Hebert; he's got 3 receiving touchdowns. C.J. Powell, 31 receptions, but hasn't found the end zone this year. Isaiah Graham, only 17 receptions, but he's got 3 touchdown catches this year. So Louisiana Tech likes to kind of mix up the receivers based where they're at on the field, but I think the most dangerous player offensively to have from a fantasy standpoint, or maybe the most valuable, would be Smoke Harris, because we know he can get the ball maybe out of the backfield. We know that they're going to try to get it to him on some passes as well. With Luke Anthony hurt, Aaron Allen is a little bit of a question mark for me. Israel Tucker, I'm not really looking to put a lot of stock in him in the running game. I think for me, from a fantasy standpoint, the way the projection's shaken out, we've got Allen with the more points projected, but that's because he's quarterback. But from the running back receivers, we have Smoke Harris as the highest projected player at the running back or receiver position for Louisiana Tech in this matchup. So let's get into breakdown of really the picks. I mentioned the injuries already. Luke Anthony, J.D. King, Justin Tomlin, Shai Werts, Wesley Kennedy, all missing. So this is really a game of sort of the backup quarterbacks and who's going to be able to basically operate their system the best. I give the edge to Georgia Southern in this just because of the offensive line. I give Georgia Southern the advantage just because I think they have the defensive edge as well. And I think Georgia Southern might be more that when I look at that offensive system and I look at the running game, that's exactly what it is. It's a little bit more of a system-oriented offense. And I think for that reason, they're going to be better off with their third quarterback than Louisiana Tech would be with Aaron Allen as a second quarterback. So I do favor the Georgia Southern rushing game. I do favor the Georgia Southern defense in this game. So for my pick, let's talk with the total first before I give you my pick. 53.5. What that projects is Georgia Southern 28-25. I think that sounds about right. I think this could be one of those games where maybe a late score here or there determines whether or not this game goes over. Will we get a couple of more field goals than touchdowns? That's ultimately going to be determined in the total. If I had to lean one way or the other, I would probably go over. I don't know if Georgia Southern's going to be able to, I don't know if Louisiana Tech's going to be able to slow Georgia Southern down. And I do think that Louisiana Tech's going to be prepped just enough that they're going to be able to find some points. Whether or not they'll be able to find enough in the end is going to be the big question, because if I have a lean one way or the other, I lean more Georgia Southern to kind of limit Louisiana Tech's offense than I do favor Louisiana Tech's defense, limiting Georgia Southern's offense. So for me, the pick in this game, the spread is 3. I'm going to take Georgia Southern. I like the Sun Belt better than Conference USA. I think the Sun Belt is a better conference than Conference USA. I'm taking Georgia Southern not only to win the game, but I'm also picking them to cover the 3 points as well. And that's my pick for the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl on Wednesday, December 23rd.